All right, bros, hang on there. Let's see. Get going here. Get us going. So, I got this going here. The first lesson too. So, Fauci and Rand Paul.
Ability to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
that's this
and
shit,
I want
bro.
to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
Yeah,
Okay,
no
you-
idea, bro. He's just a doctor, though. He's a real doctor.
Definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's let Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2, that's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
If it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be
Okay,
responsibility.
this was her, Operation Flagship and all
This
that.
committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments,
Okay,
that
we can get the
were
rest
given
of
in
one.
the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those
It
viruses
is-
caused it.
it
No
is
one is alleging that
molecularly-
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain of function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
you can't
not-
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth.
Senator
You are the
Paul's
one.
time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists,
Okay,
those
we can get
viruses are
this, boys.
molecularly impossible
Seven
to
hundred, go.
result
No
in
one's saying those viruses
SARS-CoV-2.
caused the pandemic.
Senator Paul,
We're saying they are gain of function viruses because they were
They're not.
animal
One hour.
viruses.
One hour. Time we get them, we can go to Dundas.
And
So,
you funded it.
And you
Admit the truth.
Senator
implying
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
and you are
okay,
implying
let's see here.
that what we did was responsible for the deaths
go
of
to this
individuals.
one here.
I totally resent
could
that.
have
And if
been.
anybody
It could
is
have been.
lying,
Until we resemble it.
is
Okay,
you.
bro. Operations. Okay.
Section 1001 of the U.S. Criminal Code creates a felony and a 5-year penalty for lying to Congress. On your last trip to our committee on May 11th, you stated that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And yet, gain-of-function research was done entirely in the Wuhan Institute by Dr. Shi and was funded by the NIH. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to insert into the record the Wuhan virology paper entitled Discovery of a Rich Gene Pool of Bat SARS-Related Coronaviruses. Please deliver a copy of the journal article to Dr. Fauci. In this paper, Dr. Shi credits the NIH and lists the actual number of the grant that she was given by the NIH. In this paper, she took 2 bat coronavirus genes, spike genes, and combined them with a SARS-related backbone to create new viruses that are not found in nature. These lab-created viruses were then shown to replicate in humans. These experiments combine genetic information from different coronaviruses that infect animals but not humans to create novel artificial viruses able to infect human cells. Viruses that in nature only infect animals were manipulated in the Wuhan lab to gain the function of infecting humans. This research fits the definition of the research that the NIH said was subject to the pause in 2014 to 2017, a pause in funding on gain of function. But the NIH failed to recognize this, defines it away, and it never came under any scrutiny. Dr. Richard E. Bright, a molecular biologist from Rutgers, described this research in Wuhan as the Wuhan lab used NIH funding to construct novel chimeric SARS-related coronaviruses able to infect human cells and laboratory animals. This is high-risk research that creates new potential pandemic pathogens that exist only in the lab, not in nature. This research matches, these are Dr. E. Bright's words, this research matches, indeed epitomizes, the definition of gain-of-function research, done entirely in Wuhan, for which there was supposed to be a federal pause. Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Your microphone.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying
Bros,
that's
I'll be right back.
That is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about.
Okay, here we go with
I
that.
will say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the
Madam
NIH
Chair, can I
definition of
answer the
gain of
question?
function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's let Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2, that's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
If it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look
He totally resembles that lie, don't he?
used in the experiments that were given in the annual reports
Yeah, buddy.
published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No
Oh,
one
there we
said
go.
those viruses
It is-
caused it.
it
No
is
one alleging that
molecularly-
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and
That is
you can't
not-
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are the
Time
one.
is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are
Listen to this shit I got going here on my stream.
No
in
one said those
SARS-CoV-2.
viruses caused the
Yeah, I'm
pandemic.
curious about this. This is,
Viruses because they were animal viruses that
hi, man.
became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
this is Anthony Fauci, the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, and Rand Paul, and they're in front of Congress because they did gain of function research on COVID, and he's saying and lying about it.
Autopilot mode in
I mean, straight up, just lying about it. And it's yeah, that's some sad shit. That guy is sitting there, Anthony Fauci, a line.
Truth.
And you implying...
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that
Oh,
what we
listen
did
to
was
this.
responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Section 1001 of the U.S. Criminal Code.
Now listen to me. Trying to get him to retract that before they...
On your last trip to our committee on May 11th, you stated that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And yet, gain-of-function research was done entirely in the Wuhan Institute. I'd like to consent to insert into the record the Wuhan virology paper entitled Discovery of a Rich Gene Pool of Bat SARS-Related Coronaviruses. Please deliver a copy of the journal article to Dr. Fauci. In this paper, Dr. Shi credits the NIH and lists the actual number of the grant that she was given by the NIH. In this paper, she took 2 bat coronavirus genes, spike genes, and combined them with SARS-related backbone to create new viruses that are not found in nature. These lab-created viruses were then shown to replicate in humans. These experiments combine genetic information from the different coronaviruses that infect animals but not humans to create novel artificial viruses able to infect human cells. Viruses that in nature only infect animals were manipulated in the Wuhan lab to gain the function of infecting humans. This research fits the definition of the research that the NIH said was subject to the pause in 2014 to 2017, a pause in funding on gain of function. But the NIH failed to recognize this, defines it away, and it never came under any scrutiny. Dr. Richard E. Bright, a molecular biologist from Rutgers, described this research in Wuhan as the Wuhan lab used NIH funding to construct novel chimeric SARS-related coronaviruses able to infect human cells and laboratory animals. This is high-risk research that creates new potential pandemic pathogens that exist only in the lab, not in nature. This research matches, these are Dr. E. Bright's words, this research matches, indeed epitomizes, the definition of gain-of-function research, done entirely in Wuhan, for which there was supposed to be a federal pause. Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. What was, let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans, you're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
I don't know what you call it now, being a fucking gain of function, man. I mean, really.
That you are making is that the grant...
Honestly, how the hell do you not call that gain of function research, man?
Created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
We don't
wait
know
a
if
minute.
it did
I
come
can-
from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab.
That's crazy, man. That's some bitch.
I totally resent the lie.
No, I think you resemble that lab,
Because if you look at
because that ain't a damn lie.
that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying
No,
those
it ain't.
It is.
caused it.
It
No
is
one is
molecularly.
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
Can't
not.
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are the one.
Time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible
No one's
to
saying
result
they are. No
in
one's saying those viruses
SARS-CoV-2.
caused the pandemic.
Dr. Paul.
We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And you,
It's the truth.
and you implying,
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
and you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent
could
that.
have.
And if anybody
It could
is
have.
lying here, Senator, it is you.
Well, how the hell's he lying?
U.S. Criminal Code creates a felony and a 5-year penalty for lying to Congress. On your last trip to our committee on May 11th, you stated that the NIH...
Damn, wait a minute, bro. He just keeps going over and over with that.
...in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And yet...
They've got that stuck in a loop.
Research was done entirely in the Wuhan Institute by Dr. Shi and was funded by the NIH.
I mean,
The average person sees around 10,000 online ads daily. Here's how a man's life would change.
I mean, really,
Scrutiny. Dr. Richard E. Bright, a molecular biologist...
that's the same thing, stuck in a loop. Damn, man, how the hell on that dude's, would he be lying? He wasn't the one published the paper, she was. And another thing is, he absolutely, if that ain't gain of function, what the fuck is it? I mean, and that's old anyway. On that one, I remember that was like year 4. That was the
Fire at your allies.
that was the year of the pandemic. That was the last year of it when they was taking him in front of him over that shit, and they tried to get. I mean, why that man ain't in jail, man? Defeated son of a gun. I mean, honestly, no idea. Hey, David Depp. Hey, good evening to you, bro. Sitting here listening to Rand Paul and Fauci, or when he went in front of Congress and lied his ass off and act like that shit they did in Wuhan, or that paper that one Chinese lady had drawn up about where she'd mixed COVID and SARS and was doing that gain of function research, and he didn't. He kept saying that was a lie. They didn't do it, and that was the lie about the whole deal. See, we know better than that now, man, because they went back through it again, and it was exactly what Rand Paul said it was. They did do it, and they've all agreed more than likely that COVID but anyway, and they all agreed that it did start from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. So we know better than that now. That it was 90% that it was did start that way. That it wasn't what they said. So the Chinese government and the Department of Health and Human, the whatever he was over, did do that. That's a fact about that. They did do that. So what are they going to do about it? I mean, that was another thing that Trump had said that he was going to do something about. Was how COVID started and the whole nine. And like, he did go in front of Congress and lie. Because you listen to the papers she drawed, as she did. She wrote a paper on it. And very proud of it too, she was. And she said that she had did it with, and it was gain of function, and that they had and the Department of the DHI, whatever they call it, did know about it, and yeah.
Support during the embarkation.
You know, that's a no shit deal there, dude.
For the aircraft in the specified sector.
Period. That they knowed about that. You know, that's a shame, man, that they knowed about that. They released that on the world. We've had all these people die. And nobody's been held accountable for it. Killed off generations, especially the elderly. And you know, that's really sad, man. It really is. That's really sad because, I mean, honestly, you look at the people who died alone, all that during that, man. Honestly. All the people that died in hospitals alone during all that. And that was a bunch of bullshit there too about that, because they was lying all the time about that, hollering that bullshit about social distancing and all that crap as well. Well, that's what we went through 2.5 years of lies and bullshit. And then they expect, and this was from Democrats too, dudes. That's the truth about that. Went through all them lies, all that bullshit. For them to do what? To turn around and then didn't want to pay a man. I mean, in all honesty, they cheated their way through a fucking election and everything with that.
The ship is on fire.
Yeah, man.
Problem solved, sir.
You know, that's a real shame about all that, man. You know, it really is. It's a crying shame that they did the crap they did.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Okay, 6. Oh yeah. Okay. That's a true shame about that, man. They did like they did, man, and caused people to die alone and everything, didn't it? That's sad, bro. It really is. I honestly, I hate that so bad that they did people that way, man. You think if the poor people died alone, died no one by their side, nobody to comfort them, nothing of the sort, man. That's a shame, then some, man.
General quarters. The aerodrome is in maximum danger. An
Oh,
enemy
damn.
ship has entered the base area.
Or, I didn't even know. No, did not even know. It must be the Iowa.
Attention. Reporting to target position.
Okay. Let's see if we can get some good lockage on this bad boy here. Barely touched it, then we need to go over and get into that. I think we should try. Now we swarped out far enough here, I would think. And we don't have to sit and hold it down like that. Yeah, man, that's really sad crap they pulled there. I mean, in all honesty, I think so. Come on, bruh. $102,000. We did well, ain't we? Okay. I mean, hell, we could deal one of these. That fills back up. We can.
Commanders, transport aircraft have arrived. Proceed to evacuation. Protect the aerodrome until embarkation is finished and the transport aircraft leave base runway. Provide gunfire support for attack aircraft. An enemy aircraft carrier was spotted in the combat area. Destroy her.
Alrighty. I don't even see that carrier, man. I would hope, you know. Well, it's all coming behind us, aren't they? Okay, I don't know. Here, bros. See what we can do here. I think we're about to come to a stop, aren't we? Whatever here. Alright.
Attention. We intercepted enemy communications. A group of enemy destroyers have been sent to disrupt our repair base. Do not allow them to capture the repair base.
Oh, this ain't good, bro. We need to get rid of those. Let's back out here, bro, because they're going to pepper us, man.
Ship is on fire.
Well, I wanted to tell you.
Enemy
Okay.
cruiser foundered. Torpedo tubes destroyed.
Oh,
Problem
crap.
solved, sir.
Let's see what one it was, do here. Come on, man. Come on, come on, come on.
encountered.
Oh, you know
Torpedo
now.
tubes destroyed.
Oh, well, damn, bruh. I need to come and protect my torpedo tubes that are broke before, you know, that's saying, punk ass bitch. Let's turn that door this way. Oh hell, what the hell did they do? Okay. What's,
Ship is on fire.
IPS, 7. Oh man, we better get back in there or we're gonna die. Oh hell. We ain't got no,
Problem
none.
solved, sir.
Oh, we're on for him. Ooh, gosh. Well, I gotta use the bathroom. Be right back. I'll be damned, dude. I think he'd make it. Not to lie. There, Opie. Come on, bro. Yeah, it's a good Opie dog. You alright, Otis? Alright, bros. Let me see here. Try to, I think I just too high. Okay, that's good. Now, let me see. Oh. Sorry, dudes. Okay. 770,000. Holy coop. Alright. Let's see here. Okay, that's one or two. We need two more. We got two more hours for that one. Let's see here. 4 days on that one. What's this one? 4 days, 4 days, 4 days. It's this is what we're wanting to. 39 minutes. Time we do another one, maybe. Okay. Let's try it again. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna throw it out there, bro, and say it that that's shocked the piss out of me. We died like that. You know, I don't know, man. That's I mean, I really have some crap once you get to listen and stuff. I don't care if it was a year ago. It's still yeah. That's sad crap, man. Cause you gotta look. What they did there on it, man. That's bad because so many people died of COVID by themselves, and all the orderly and everything. And when you sit and you really think about it and stuff, I mean, wrap your head around that, they lied. What Donald Trump said from the start, that's what happened. He said it was come from Wuhan, China. When the guy flew in, wasn't it, to California and had COVID, and that ain't how I believe they sent it container ships and shit. In all honesty. That's sad, man. It really is. Not just that, man. Other, like, well, it's a really sad crap, man. Well, bullshit. What's this Boston DOJ updates on Boston City Council arrest for corruption charges? Okay.
You're not a child.
Oh, yeah, evidently ain't, are you? Child man. There we go.
Was arrested
Here we go,
for
bros.
public corruption charges. These 6 felony charges stem from an alleged kickback scheme that she orchestrated to obtain several $1,000s in taxpayer money in exchange for a bribe she paid to a staffer she gave her a very large bonus. The indictment charges Ms. Fernandez-Anderson with 5 counts of wire fraud in violation of Title 18, United States Code 1343, and 1 count of theft concerning programs receiving federal funds in violation of Title 18, United States Code 666. According to the indictment that was returned by a federal grand jury earlier this week, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson was facing financial difficulty in 2023. Part of that financial difficulty stemmed from a sanction that was imposed by the State Ethics Commission of $5,000 for Ms. Fernandez-Anderson hiring immediate family members in her Boston City Council office. And in around that same time in 2023, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson, the grand jury alleges, hatched this scheme to funnel bonus payments, taxpayer money into her own pocket in the tune of approximately $7,000. Specifically, despite the fact that she was under investigation by the State Ethics Commission, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson hired another family member on her staff at Boston City Hall to handle constituent services. That staff member was related to her, but Ms. Fernandez-Anderson falsely represented to City Hall that there was no familial relationship. That is staff member A in the indictment. Ms. Fernandez-Anderson then went on to tell that staff member A that she would give that person a $13,000 bonus. That bonus of $13,000 was more than twice as much as Ms. Fernandez was paying to the rest of her staff combined in bonuses. But that supersized bonus came with a hitch. Ms. Fernandez-Anderson told staff member A that she would need to fork over $7,000 in cash back to Ms. Fernandez-Anderson. Staff member A agreed. The indictment alleges that after staff member A received the deposit of approximately $10,000 after taxes in her bank account, staff member A was directed to make cash withdrawals. And she did that in the days following the receipt of the money in her bank account. $3,000 on May 31st, 2023, $3,000 on June 5th, 2023, and $4,000 on the afternoon of Friday, June 9th, 2023. And shortly after that last cash withdrawal, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson and staff member A texted each other, and they arranged for a meetup in a bathroom in City Hall. That meeting happened in the bathroom around 4 o'clock or so on that Friday. And when they met inside that bathroom, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson put $7,000 in cash in her pocket, the grand jury alleges. All of that money was funded by the taxpayers of the city of Boston. When faced with financial hardship and that State Ethics Commission $5,000 sanction, Ms. Fernandez-Anderson chose to violate her fiduciary duty and defraud the city of Boston, the indictment alleges, rather than find a legal means to pay off that debt. When her constituents elected Ms. Fernandez-Anderson, she had a fundamental obligation to act with the utmost integrity. Public officials who line their pockets with taxpayer money erode the trust and confidence of the public in the officials who serve them. Public service is a privilege, and all of us in public service have a duty to act with integrity and fairness in all that we do. This office, for years, has been committed to rooting out public corruption and will continue to do so. We, alongside with our federal partners from the IRS and the FBI, investigate all allegations of public corruption, follow the facts and law where they lead, and we will hold people who abuse their power accountable. I now would like to ask for Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Steve Kelleher, to share a few comments.
Nice, Josh. Good morning. I'm Steve Kelleher, Assistant Special Agent in charge of FBI Boston. It's like deja vu all over again. Another Boston City Councilor is accused of embracing a culture of cashing in at the expense of the public good. Earlier this morning, the FBI arrested Tanya Fernandez-Anderson at her home in Dorchester for accepting $7,000 in cash in a City Hall bathroom from a member of the staff who is also a relative. Basically, what we have here is an elected official pretending her motives were purely civic-minded. In fact, we believe she was unlawfully conspiring to enrich herself. This city councilor is accused of stealing thousands of dollars from the city through not just creative, but criminal accounting. Why and how did she do it? We believe she was facing personal financial difficulty when she decided to steal money for herself in the form of a supposed bonus she had doled out to a staff member. Well, in this Commonwealth and in this country, our elected officials work for us, not the other way around. Using public office for personal gain is a crime, plain and simple. The behavior we allege in today's indictment is a slap in the face to the hardworking taxpayers in the city of Boston who have every right to expect that the city's coffers are in good and honest hands. Nobody is picking on Tanya Fernandez-Anderson and her inner circle. We believe this is a situation of her own making. The FBI is working hard every day to battle public corruption and the corrosive damage it does to people's faith in government. We must hold public officials to high ethical standards, and we will hold them to obeying federal law. We ask anyone with knowledge of wrongdoing by public officials to call the FBI or share information online at tips.fbi.gov. My thanks to the agents, analysts, accountants, and attorneys who have worked very hard over the last year to advance this investigation, specifically FBI Boston's Public Corruption Squad, the prosecution team here at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and our colleagues at the IRS. Their continued partnership and support are greatly appreciated. I'll turn it over to the IRS for comments.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Wadaka. I am the Acting Special Agent in charge for IRS Criminal Investigations, Boston Field Office. I would like to begin by thanking United States Attorney Joshua Levy for hosting this press conference today. I would also like to thank and recognize the FBI's Boston Field Office for their incredible work on this investigation. IRS Criminal Investigation is committed to identifying and investigating all financial crimes, no matter how small. This is especially true for our commitment to rooting out public corruption, which is a top priority. Today, special agents with IRS Criminal Investigation, in conjunction with special agents from the FBI, have arrested Councilor Tanya Fernandez-Anderson, a second-term Boston City Councilor, for defrauding the city of Boston. Elected officials are held to a higher standard. Councilors are supposed to help their constituents and provide a voice for them. Instead, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson decided to put herself ahead of all those who voted for her when she orchestrated a kickback scheme to enrich herself using city funds. She lied to her staff and betrayed her constituents, all while being a strong advocate for increased accountability for public officials. No excuse could justify the theft of city funds for any purpose, whether legitimate or not. The counselor failed to recognize and adhere to the most basic of social expectations, not to lie or steal from others, especially those who put their trust into her to do what is right. Financial crimes are not a victimless crime. Every time funds are stolen at the federal, state, city, or local level, the victims are the citizens that inhabit these communities. The victims are the taxpayers, whose money was used for the enrichment of one instead of the greater good of all. Public funds are essential for funding social welfare programs, the education of our children, and ensuring our communities are kept safe. IRS criminal investigation uses our financial expertise to find allegation of financial crimes, thoroughly investigate it, and ensure that justice is preserved for all. We will continue to work hand in hand with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners to ensure that those who break the law and take advantage of others are brought to justice. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you, Jonathan.
What is going to happen with staff member A? Is she cooperating with this investigation? Could she also be facing charges?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on other aspects of the investigation beyond what's in the public record right now.
Staff member A is the sister, correct?
Staff member A is identified as staff member A in the indictment.
How long was the investigation?
Well, I'm not going to comment on when the investigation began. Obviously, we're dealing with fairly recent events from the middle of last year, so it's something we've been working on for several months.
You said the indictment was done this week, what day?
I believe the indictment was returned yesterday. Should be at the bottom of the indictment.
And how is this going to impact her job right now?
Yeah, that's outside the purview of the Department of Justice in terms of what happens with her job. We'll proceed with the criminal case as we do with every other case. She'll have an initial appearance today, and then we'll proceed in further status conferences, discovery, and the criminal case will proceed, but we're not going to comment on her job status.
Can you comment on the amount of money, $7,000? I know there was reference to it doesn't matter how small. If you steal allegedly, then you'll be charged. But what's the impact in terms of the case going forward, in terms of sentencing? We've seen others charged with small amounts who were sentenced to 3 years in prison. So what's the impact here as it goes forward based on the amount of money here?
Yeah, so the amount of money is one factor we consider in whether to bring federal charges. The fact that it's a public official certainly it makes the conduct more egregious that's alleged here. And I think, as you know from being in these halls for many years, Shelley, there's sentencing guidelines that generate a recommended sentence to the court, and that's driven by a number of factors, including the amount of money, but other things. There's factors for abuse of position of trust and being a leader, that type of thing. So that will all factor in to what the guidelines are and ultimately the sentence imposed by a federal judge.
Do you have any video evidence of the kickback, the alleged kickback at this point? I know there's cameras in City Hall. You mentioned about a bathroom. Can you be any more specific about where, what happened in there?
I can't be any more specific right now about the evidence that we have.
So there was a talk circulating that there was a search at City Hall of her office.
A what circulating?
A search at the counselor's office at City Hall.
Yeah, I can't comment on whether we did a search or not at City Hall.
These allegations seem eerily similar to the type of bonus and kickback seen in the Correa case. How concerned are you about this behavior being endemic in the Commonwealth?
I guess I would answer that by saying when we get tips or information about misconduct, whether it's in public corruption or other spaces, we pursue it, we investigate it. I have no information that's endemic, but I echo Assistant Special Agent in Charge Kelleher's comments that we want to receive information from the public if they have other information of this type of conduct, but I would not characterize anything as endemic at this point.
Are you seeking more information about the city councilor, and is this an ongoing investigation?
This is an ongoing investigation, and will continue. This is, as you well know, sometimes cases involve superseding indictments if there's a reason to bring additional charges.
Councilor Fernandez Anderson was involved in
Oh, shoot.
community groups, and I'm wondering if part of the investigation is looking into other financial transactions within those groups.
Yeah. So I'm not going to comment on what other parts of the investigation we're working on. We obviously investigated this to a point where we felt very comfortable presenting it to a grand jury, and that we had had this established beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's why the charge has been filed. As to what else we're working on, I'm not going to comment on right now.
The indictment mentions that transparently signed non-disclosure agreements. Is that common practice in this case?
We included that in the indictment because it stuck out to us as unusual and not consistent with the transparency that I think the public expects from government officials. So that's what I'll say about that.
Did that, with the investigation after the member was hired, did that spark this investigation?
No.
I'm not going to comment on how we get going on investigations. We get information from a variety of sources at our office, at the FBI, at IRS, and so I'm not going to get into what sparked our investigation here.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any details on the actual arrest?
Oh, yeah, man, bro.
Picked up this morning, what time she was arrested? Did she say anything? I saw the video, looked like she walked out by herself to the front door.
Yeah, I'm going to let Assistant Special in Charge Keller answer the question.
Yeah, she was taken into custody shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. She has not made any statements. She has an attorney. We haven't asked her any questions.
She walked out to the front door by herself?
Yeah, she was called out, by the agents outside. We surrounded the residence and we placed a call to her and asked her to come outside, and she did. She was taken into custody.
Was she given any special accommodation because she was city council?
Absolutely not.
Can you talk about the blatantness or boldness of the bathroom exchange? Like, to do that in the City Hall bathroom? Can you just talk about that anecdotally? Seems a little bold.
I highlighted it in my remarks because, as alleged, not only was these taxpayers' funds being stolen, but it was happening right in the building where she works. So, from my personal opinion, I think it adds to the egregiousness of this conduct.
Mr. Judge.
Okay.
Chair now, quote, Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. The only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves.
Damn it.
So he didn't have full authority, did he?
I had an extended conversation with Senator Grassley at the time. We briefly touched on the Section 515 question and how that process went. I've never been suggested...
My point's real simple, Mr. Garland. You said he had complete authority, but he'd already been turned down. He wanted to bring an action in the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney there said, no, you can't. And then you go tell the United States Senate under oath that he has complete authority.
I'm going to say again that no one had the authority to turn him down. They could refuse to partner with him. They could not...
You can use whatever language. Refuse to partner is turning down.
Well, it's not the same under a well-known Justice Department practice.
Here's why the statute of limitations question is important that Mr. Bishop was getting at just a few minutes ago. Here's why it's important. You let the statute of limitations lapse for 2014, 2015. Those were the years with the felony tax charges where Hunter Biden was getting income from Burisma. Here are 4 facts that I think are so important. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma, made a lot of money, got paid a lot of money over those years. Couple $1 million. He wasn't qualified. Fact number 2, he wasn't qualified to be on the board of Burisma. Not my words, his words. He said he got on the board because of his last name. The brand, as Devin Archer said when he was under oath and we deposed him. Fact number 3, Burisma executives told Hunter Biden, we're under pressure, we need help. Fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine, leverages our tax money, American people's tax money, to get the prosecutor fired who was applying the pressure. Interestingly enough, that fact is entirely consistent with what the confidential human source told the FBI, and they recorded in the 1023 form. The same form Mr. Wray didn't want to let this committee and the Congress see. That all happened. That all happened. And what I'm wondering is why you guys let the statute of limitations lapse for those tax years that dealt with Burisma income.
When you are worried about giving gifts, you might as well consider a unique and creative flying hoverball. This magical toy can...
There's one more fact that's important, and that is that this investigation was being conducted by Mr. Weiss, an appointee of President Trump. You will, at the appropriate time, have the opportunity to ask Mr. Weiss that question, and he will no doubt address it in the public report that will be transmitted to the Congress. I don't know the answer to those questions.
Did they forget? Did the lawyers just like let it, did they just like, oh, darn, we let it, were they careless?
I expect that won't be what he says, but because I
You
promised...
know that's not the case, because as Mr. Bishop pointed out, they had a tolling agreement. They talked to Hunter Biden's defense counsel and say, let's extend the statute of limitations. And then at some point, they made an intentional decision to say, we're going to let the statute of limitations lapse. And I want to know who decided that and why they did it.
Mr. Weiss was a supervisor of the investigation at that time and at all times. He made the appropriate decisions, and you'll be able to ask him that question, and he will.
You know why they did it? Everyone knows why they did it. May not say it, but everyone knows why they did it. They didn't. Those tax years, that dealt with that involved the president. It's one thing to have a gun charge in Delaware. That doesn't involve the president of the United States. But Burisma, oh my, that goes right to the White House. We can't have that. And we can slow walk this thing along. We can even extend the statute of limitations, and then we can intentionally let it lapse. And we know this investigation was slow. Here's what everyone said. Shapley said, DOJ slow walked the investigation. Ziegler, slow walking in the approvals of everything. This happened at the Delaware's attorney's office and DOJ tax level. Mr. Sobocinski, the FBI agent, said, I would have liked to see things move faster. Ms. Holly said the same. Every witness we've talked to said this thing was slow walked, and we know why. They slow walked it long enough to let the statute of limitations run so they wouldn't have to get into Burisma. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I'm asking Mr. Garland the question.
I think I've tried to make clear that I don't know the specifics of the investigation. Much of what you are describing occurred during the Trump administration, during a Justice Department appointed by President Trump.
No, it didn't. This is 4.5 years, this investigation. We're talking about the last few years. Your statement was just this year, March 1st, to Senator Grassley.
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to respond to your descriptions of what the IRS agent said about certain
statute
things.
of limitations is 6 years.
Right now, we got that again.
In the Biden administration.
On the statute of limitations, I will say again that the explanation for why the statute of limitation was lapsed, if it was, has to come from Mr. Weiss.
My time is this, but let me ask one last question real quick here. Who decided that David Weiss would stay on as U.S. attorney?
This had occurred before I came. Mr. Weiss had been kept on. I promised the...
No, I didn't say, you can walk all through that. I said, who decided? The White House decided.
Mr. Weiss,
right? They serve at the pleasure of the president, right?
Mr. Weiss was...
Joe Biden decided to keep David Weiss as U.S. attorney. You weren't sworn in until March. He was told he was going to stay on in February.
Expired.
Pretty fundamental question. Who decided David Weiss was going to stay as U.S. attorney in Delaware?
Mr. Weiss,
your time has expired.
Chairman, your time has expired.
I'm waiting for an answer.
Well, you asked the question after your time had expired already. Point of order.
Gentleman can respond, then I'll go to Ms. Jackson-Lee.
Mr. Weiss was the special U.S. attorney from the District of Delaware when I came on. He had been appointed by President Trump. I promised that he would be permitted to stay on for this investigation, and that is what happened.
The gentleman floor is recognized 5 minutes.
I guess I'm just wondering, Mr. Attorney General, has anyone at the department told President Biden to knock it off with Hunter? I mean, you guys are charging Hunter Biden on some crimes, investigating him on others. You got the president bringing Hunter Biden around to state dinners. Has anyone told him to knock it off?
Our job in the Justice Department is to pursue our cases without reference to what's happening in the outside world.
Just yes or no. Have you done that?
That is what we do.
So it's a no?
No one that I know of has spoken to the White House about the Hunter Biden case.
I'm wondering then,
not.
okay, I got it. So Hunter Biden is selling art to pay for his $15,000 a month rent in Malibu. How can you guarantee that the people buying that art aren't doing so to gain favor with the president?
Job of the Justice Department is to investigate criminal allegations. We have
I mean, someone who bought Hunter Biden's art ended up with a prestigious appointment to a federal position. Doesn't it look weird that he's become this immediate success in the art world as his dad is president of the United States? Isn't that odd?
I'm not going to comment about any specific...
Not going to comment, not going to investigate. So
right.
Hunter Biden associate Devin Archer told us that Hunter sold the appearance of access to then Vice President Biden. Are you confident he has stopped doing that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Hunter Biden associate Devin Archer told us that Hunter sold the appearance of access to then Vice President Biden. Are you confident he has stopped?
I'm going to say again that all these matters are within the purview of Mr. Weiss. I have not interfered with them, and I do not...
Yeah, but if you were confident that he had stopped, you could...
And I do not intend to
us.
interfere with
Yeah,
him.
So it was a lot of Chinese money that was working its way through these shell companies into the accounts of the Biden family. So the China initiative was set up during the Trump administration at the Department of Justice to go after the malign influence of the Chinese Communist Party. And the Biden Justice Department dissolved the China initiative. So I guess I'm wondering, does the department have any documents that would detail the basis for why you got rid of the China initiative that President Trump had set up?
The Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division gave a long speech which explained that he has testified before Congress several times. We'd be happy to provide you with...
What's the basis? Just tell us all now. Why was the China initiative dissolved?
What the Assistant Attorney General said was that we face attacks from 4 nation states: North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran. And that we need to focus our attention on the broad range of these attacks. Sometimes we don't know...
But wait a second, are you saying that North Korea has the same malign influence risk to the United States as the Chinese Communist Party? Are you trying to represent there's some parity there? Because here's what it looks like. It looks like the Chinese gave all this money to the Bidens, and then you guys came in and got rid of the China initiative, and it was successful. Like, I saw one rationale that you guys got rid of the China initiative because it was racial profiling. But one of the people you convicted was a guy named Charles Lieber, who was a Harvard professor taking $50,000 a month to do China's bidding and give them whatever research was being done. Are you aware of the millions of dollars that moved through Rob Walker's shell companies from Chinese Communist Party entities into Biden family bank accounts? Are you aware of that?
This tiny Egyptian village holds the answer to modern hair loss. Hidden in the heart of Egypt lies a village untouched by time.
There were a lot of questions that you just asked. Let me start with the first one about North Korea. North Korea is a dangerous actor, both kinetically and with respect to cyber.
But not on par with China. I'm on the Armed Services
Committee,
Mr. Attorney
right
General.
now of
It makes you look unserious to suggest that.
May I answer your question or not?
Answer the question about whether or not you know about all the millions of dollars that
Well,
moved
you
through
don't
Rob
want me to
Walker's
answer about North Korea.
I already know the answer, and so does everyone. They're not the same risk as China, so let's get on to serious questions and serious answers. Do you know about the money that moved through Rob Walker's shell companies, yes or no?
As I have said repeatedly, I have left these matters to Mr. Weiss. I've not intruded, I've not interfered, I've not tried to find out what
It's like
he
you're
knows.
looking the other way on purpose because everybody knows this stuff's happening. And you know what? People don't pay bribes to not get something in return, right? The China initiative resulted in the convictions of a Harvard professor, of someone at Monsanto. So we were working against the Chinese. They paid the Bidens, and now you're sitting here telling me that North Korea is the big threat. I got to get to this one thing on January 6th. So did the FBI lose count of the number of paid informants on January 6th?
Let me answer your question about China.
I want you to answer
China
this
is the
question. I only
most-
get 5 minutes. You've already sort of, I think, screwed the pooch on China. So January 6th, did you lose count of the number of federal assets? Did you lose count and order an audit?
Gentleman's time has expired.
I get an answer to the question of did they lose count?
No, let him answer the question.
Time has expired. The Attorney General can respond.
China is the most aggressive, most dangerous adversary that the United States faces, and we are doing everything within our power to rebut that, to stop that, to prevent their invasions, both kinetic, and through cyberspace. And we will continue to do
If someone
that.
gave that answer in your courtroom when you were a judge, you would tell them they were being
Mr.
non-responsive
Chairman,
and you would direct them to answer the question.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Time and what changed? On July 10th, 2023, David Weiss wrote Senator Graham and said, I have not requested special counsel designation. August 11th, you announced that he's now the special counsel. What happened in that 31 days?
As I said publicly several days before my announcement, I think 3 days, Mr. Weiss had asked to become special counsel. He explained that he had reached a stage of his investigation where he thought that appropriate.
What stage is that?
I had promised to give him the resources he needed.
What stage is that? He'd reached the stage. After 5 years, what stage are we in? We in the beginning stage, the middle stage, the end stage, the keep hiding the ball stage? What stage are we in?
I think this one I would go back to the videotape where I said I'm not permitted to discuss ongoing investigation.
Well, isn't that convenient? Something changed in 31 to 32 days from July 10th to August 11th. I think it's two brave whistleblowers came forward and a judge called BS on the plea deal. You guys tried to get past them. That's what I think happened. Mr. Garland, did you consider, I just want to go back to this question, did you consider anyone else when David Weiss requested special counsel designation on August 8th?
No, Mr. Weiss asked to be made special counsel, and I did not consider an alternative. Of course, to have put in an alternative would have greatly disrupted an investigation that was already ongoing.
To be clear, he was the only one under consideration. It was either no special counsel, or if there was a special counsel, it was going to be the guy who presided over the investigation for the previous 5 years.
I thought about the possibility, what the consequences would be, both of not appointing him and trying to find somebody else at that time, but there was no other.
You had no concerns. I mean, whistleblowers have brought forward all kinds of concerns. Earlier, when someone brought those up, you said, well, those are allegations. I think they stand up well. They've been cross-examined for 4 hours by Democrats in the Oversight Committee. But there were two facts that can be questioned. Two facts about the investigation into Hunter Biden. Fact number one, they let the statute of limitations run. They let it expire. And fact number two, the plea deal fell apart. So I just wanted to make clear that the guy who presided over all that was the only guy under consideration for special counsel designation. Is that right?
Mr. Weiss is a person known for high integrity, for great experience in the prosecutorial realm, and he was appointed by the president.
Base 1500. Okay.
I have no doubts about his abilities in this area.
He was the only one under consideration.
The question was whether to appoint someone. And I thought, I will say, what the consequences would be of trying to switch horses in midstream, but I did not consider any other person.
On July 10th, he wrote Senator Graham, and he said, I've had discussions with departmental officials. He said, I haven't sought special counsel status, but I've had discussions with departmental officials. And I don't know if this was asked earlier, who did he talk with then?
I'm sorry, you're talking about the letter that he sent to
Senator Graham on July 10th.
Again, I'm not going to get into internal deliberations.
Okay, fine. Is there one person though who's like the point person at the Justice Department for David Weiss as he now is functioning as a special counsel in this investigation?
Mr. Weiss is now subject to the special counsel regulations, which require urgent reporting under certain circumstances, require him to consult with numerous places within the Justice Department.
Okay.
Fine, you follow the statute. God bless you. That's where it's supposed to happen. But you said there's reporting. Who does he report to?
Again, I'm not going to get into this.
Is it you?
I'm ultimately responsible.
Is it the DAG?
Mr. Weiss did not have to report to anybody. He was the supervisor and decision maker in these matters.
Okay.
Attorney General, you had a very moving statement about your grandparents coming here from Belarus to live in the country without fear of prosecution. I grew up in very similar country, Ukraine now, and when I came here as a young person, I believed in the value as an American not to be afraid of my government. But I wanted to tell you, and I want to share with you and get your thoughts on that.
Okay.
Are you aware that a lot of Americans are now afraid of being prosecuted by your department? Are you aware about that? Are you aware of that? I'm just saying, are you aware or not?
I think that constant attacks on the department and saying
it's not attacks. Well, let me give you an example.
We
talk about January 6th. Some people came on January 6th. There probably were some people that came on January 6th here, that had bad intent. But a lot of good Americans from my district came here because they are sick and tired of this government not serving them. They came with strollers and the kids, and there was chaotic situation because the proper security wasn't provided. That's a question that was answered really why. Why we debated for 45 minutes on the floor and didn't stop the debate after the people broke into the Capitol. But these people came, they were throwing the smoke bombs into the crowd with strollers with kids. People were showing up, FBI agent to people's houses. You had in my district, in my town, FBI phone numbers all over the district. Please call that. People are truly afraid. I just want to make sure if you're not aware that you are. And this is a big problem when people are afraid of their own government. And I'll share some other things. We're talking about justice system. I don't question you. You're probably not a bad person. I don't know you. But what I'll tell you, you're in charge of the department. And people right now feel, I look at Durham report and I call on the FISA violations of queries of millions of Americans, right? It's like KGB, but when I read Durham reports, we have this, you have a nice, playbook. First, let's have a special counsel, and then you don't have to answer any questions here. Then, let's extend slow walk investigation on Hillary Clinton, on Hunter. Everything is slow walk. We were very quick on Donald Trump, but you were very slow walk. Then, by the time, that investigation ended, statute of limitation expired, and all of your agents need to be tested for amnesia. No one recalls anything. Okay, you probably should have as part of your hiring policy. So no one held accountable, which was egregious what happened, in that report. When I read about them, I can't believe it happened in the United States of America. This is my frustration. I'll be honest with you. Then, it's very interesting, regardless what it is, even people in the Obama administration raise concerns. How can President sons be serving on, corrupt Ukrainian oligarchs? Do you understand that it actually can undermine the one Ukrainian effort and policy? I think these concerns were raised. The Obama administration didn't do anything about it. These people are dying right now, and Americans don't trust this president. So I want to ask you one thing. I don't need answer because I know you're not going to, but I think you're probably a good American and you care. And a lot of these people are so afraid they cover up this stuff, I think, in your department because they're embarrassed that what we became as a country, to say that what our Department of Justice became. That allows Russians to do propaganda in Chinese. It allows them to destabilize our country. That is danger to our republic. It is significant danger. And I have just one more question from you. I agree on corporate crimes and FISA stuff, even with Democrats, that we need to do a better job. One more question for you. Do you believe that, you talk about rights to vote, but do you believe that only U.S. citizens should be voting in this election and doing anything to make sure that only eligible people vote in elections?
Yes and yes.
Okay, I would like to see that, what you do. Thank you. Yield back.
Mr. Garland, in David Weiss's letter to Senator Graham on July 10th of this year, he says this: I was assured that I would be granted special counsel authority if it proved necessary. And this assurance came months before the October 7th, 2022 meeting, referenced throughout the whistleblowers' allegations. How was that assurance given and who gave it?
I'm sorry, I think he was talking about 515 authority. Is that what I'm reading the letter now. He's not talking about special counsel authority. It says that I was assured.
515 authority, okay.
Yeah.
Same difference.
Yeah.
Well, not same difference, but same fundamental question.
I understand your point, yeah.
He's making the point that he was assured that this was, he could get this status, and that assurance came before October 7th, 2022. How was that assurance given and who gave it?
Yeah, I made that clear in my direction, and that was transmitted to him.
So you told him that back before October 7th that he would have?
I'm not going to get into exactly the deliberation of the department, but
there's three simple questions. How was it given? Who gave it? When was it done?
Yeah, I understand. I gave a direction from the beginning that he would be able to bring a case whenever, wherever he wanted to. That direction he heard, obviously, and he confirms that here.
Our patients are patients, not just athletes. That can be anyone from the community, particularly those that are underserved.
Mr. Ritz, I'm quite confused about this ethics issue or issues, so maybe you can just help me sort it out. So I don't think I maybe understand the facts here. So you said that you've never been subject to an ethics complaint before. Is that right?
I said, to my knowledge, never been subject to an OPR complaint or any sort of formal complaint.
Okay. I'm looking at a letter from May 16th, 2010 to the Office of Professional Responsibility that reads, this letter is a formal request that your office investigate matters pertaining to the fair dealing and, more important, honesty of Assistant United States Attorney Kevin Ritz.
If that letter exists, Senator, I was unaware of it until just now.
But you're aware of the issues surrounding the Von Rico Weber case, which is the subject of this letter asking for a formal investigation into you. You're aware of that?
As I said, I do have some recollection of that matter.
Okay. So you were subject to a complaint. I have the letter right here. Let's just try to figure out what's going on in this case. I mean, this was a case involving a public defender who you got a plea agreement with, and then she asked to withdraw as counsel because she said you misrepresented the situation to her, and the court granted her motion to withdraw as counsel. That's pretty unusual, isn't it? I mean, what's happening here? She said that you told her that she relied on information about the nature of the crime, which was, she was told, was going to be a marijuana trafficking offense, and then when she got the PSR, it had a base offense level of 34 because the underlying offense was cocaine trafficking. So she had advised her client, based on your representations, here's what you're going to be likely subject to. They accepted the plea deal. She looks at the PSR, and it's something very different, she says, than what you told her. Well, this is a public defender now. And so on that basis, she had to withdraw as counsel, and the court granted her request. That's very unusual. I mean, what happened here?
Senator, first of all, I believe it was not a public defender. It was a defense attorney on the CJA panel in West Tennessee. There was a written plea agreement that was entered into. That written plea agreement, as with all of our plea agreements, includes a provision that says these are all of the promises made to this defendant by the government.
Yeah, but neither the indictment nor the change of plea transcript nor that agreement says anything about the underlying crime. It just says funds were the proceeds of distributing controlled substances without any specification of the alleged illegal narcotics. So what she says is, you sandbagged her, basically.
And that's not true. I made no such promise along those lines.
But was there any indication before the PSR that you were going to hit this guy with the cocaine? I mean, this is unusual. It's unusual to be a Democrat administration nominate somebody who is accused of, who's hated by federal public defenders, and who's accused of sandbagging indigent defendants. So I'm baffled by this. I am totally baffled by this. So I'm trying to figure out what in the world happened. And then you got taken off this case, I think, right?
My recollection, Senator, is that the office had someone else handle it in case I needed to be a witness at a proceeding.
Well, here's what Vivian Donaldson, who is the counsel who ended up representing the United States, at Ms. Chastain's motion to withdraw as counsel, here's what she said. These allegations about you are serious. That's one of the reasons I am here, meaning in court, and Mr. Ritz will more than likely be taken off this case because of these particular allegations. So did that happen?
And I believe it was in case I needed to be a witness. But those allegations...
This is what your supervisor said in open court. I'm not quoting you now a private letter. I'm quoting you something from open court. She says you were removed from the case because of the allegations, which she says were very serious. Now, you've represented this committee. You knew nothing about all of this. You answered a question in the committee questionnaire that you weren't aware of any complaint. You weren't aware of any disciplinary committee. You weren't aware of any inquiry ever. But yet, I'm reading you a transcript from open court in which your supervising attorney says the allegations against you are very serious and you're going to be removed. So I have to tell you, I don't think I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going on here, because it doesn't sound to me like you've been very forthcoming, certainly to this committee. So what happened? Were you removed because of the allegations of improper behavior?
The allegations were false, first of all.
I'm not asking you about your view. I'm asking you about what you told the court and about what your supervising attorney told the court.
And I don't recall exactly why there may have been a change in counsel.
Mr. Ritz, don't you think don't you think that's kind of important information?
These allegations were false, and there was never
You have a clear memory of that, but you don't have a clear memory of what happened in open court and you being potentially removed by your supervising attorney. This is very bizarre, I have to say. I've never seen it quite like this. This is very, very strange. And I just noticed that we have a sudden instance of amnesia anytime we're dealing with the actual ethical complaint, but you seem to remember the case exceptionally well. So this troubles me, and it's strange. It's very, very strange. Maybe my Democratic colleagues can clear this up. I'm sure they've vetted you. This is very, very odd. So your testimony is you weren't removed, all of this was false, you were never investigated, and this just what? This just all went away?
There was certainly no court finding or any other finding by an investigative body of any unethical behavior.
I thought the court then allowed this defendant to change his guilty plea. He pled guilty, and then the court allowed him to withdraw it. That's also very unusual.
It does happen from time to time, Senator.
On the basis of your misrepresentations.
That was not the finding of the court.
Senator Kennedy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ritz, you are a political activist, aren't you?
I consider myself that at all.
Disabled. Okay. When you were sworn in as U.S. Attorney, you gave a speech, didn't you?
I did.
Here's what you said. I'm going to quote from your speech. But you should know that justice for me is about more than putting people in prison. For me, it's also about who votes and how hard it is to cast that vote. It's about where pipelines go. It's about where bus routes go. Justice is about whether people in all zip codes can get along. Whether women have access to health care. Whether citizens have affordable housing and clean drinking water. Sometimes those are Department of Justice issues. Sometimes they are not. But for me, they're all justice issues. Did I read that accurately?
I believe so, Senator.
Okay. Did you really remove the Tennessee state flag from your conference room?
Senator, I appreciate you asking about this again. As the chief federal law enforcement.
Well, did you do it?
So, I felt it was fundamentally inappropriate when I gave press conferences and similar statements to the public to indicate or suggest something that I spoke to the state, which I don't under our system of federalism.
Are you embarrassed to be from Tennessee?
Not at all, Senator. I am from Tennessee, grew up as a public school kid in Tennessee.
But you were embarrassed to have the Tennessee flag.
That's not it at all, Senator.
You have a history
Attention ship and squadron commanders.
of lying to your professional colleagues, don't you?
That's not true, Senator.
Okay. Do you know a former public defender named Stephen Shankman?
I knew him to a degree. I'm not sure we ever had any cases together. I knew who he was, yes.
Well, in a private email, not meant for public consumption, to another one of your professional colleagues, this is what Mr. Shankman said, talking about your lying. He said, "It is unfortunate that this is not the first, second, third, or whatever occasion that this sort of thing has occurred. But everyone should be aware of this unfortunate pattern of behavior. You should be aware," he said to the other lawyer, before the other lawyer dealt with you. "Your client should be aware, and you should proceed with extreme caution." Was Mr. Shankman lying?
To the degree he suggested that I acted unethically, that was not accurate, and it wasn't in any occasion, much less numerous occasions.
Okay, let's talk about this case, United States v. Von Rico Weber, which you claim to not remember. But before I do that, a few seconds ago, you lied to Senator Hawley, didn't you?
I'm under oath, Senator. I did not lie.
You said you have no knowledge of any complaint, professional complaint made against you, didn't you?
I said I have no knowledge of any sort of formal complaint, and he read from a letter that I don't believe I ever saw.
And you were shocked.
You
never heard of that before.
If there were a formal complaint, that, as I said, I had not known about that.
Okay. You were amazed.
I don't recall any of that.
I
recall this Mr. Weber's
case. You have amnesia about it.
Again, I am unaware of any formal complaint or investigation. Certainly was not.
You believe in the tooth fairy?
Senator, I don't...
The ship is on fire! Now, in this case, United States v. Von Rico Weber, you lied to the defense counsel. And the defense counsel then had to go before the court and withdraw a plea
Problem solved,
for his
sir.
counsel. And a complaint was filed, about which you apparently have amnesia. And the Justice Department replaced you. And the lawyer from the Justice Department who replaced you, this is what the lawyer said. The new attorney said about you. Said these allegations against Mr. Ritz are, quote, serious. And it is taken so seriously, referring to the Department of Justice, by our office. That is one of the reasons I'm here, and Mr. Ritz will be more than likely be taken off this case because of those allegations.
Attention, Squadron Commander. According to reconnaissance data, one more enemy aircraft
I didn't lie to the defense counsel in that case. I didn't lie today. So.
Now, my good friend Senator Ossoff asked you if you'd follow the law. And you said yes. But if you're lying to us today, you're stuck.
Senator, I have not lied and did not lie in that case.
You just have amnesia.
I did not lie in that case. There was a written plea agreement with the entire agreement of the parties.
If you believe that, you believe Elvis is alive and running a small bait stand on Lake Erie. Shame on you.
In your 2023 U.S. Attorney Investiture speech, you highlighted the challenges you believe America faces and what justice means. You said, quote, "We're experiencing a long overdue reckoning with racism in the criminal justice system." Mr. Ritz, what part of the criminal justice system needs a long overdue reckoning?
Senator, what I was describing were a number of things that have happened in recent years in this country that framed, I would say, in some ways, the work that we do in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Is the American justice system systematically racist?
That is not a sentiment that I hold. To the degree there is a definition of what being systematically racist means, I understand some individuals have pointed to disparities in sentencing and that type of thing, but that's not a view that I have.
So that's not a view that you have. That was your testimony. Well, you also said, quote, "There cannot be one rule of law for people who look like me and another for people of color." That sure sounds like the view you just said you didn't have. Do you believe that's our system, that our justice system has one rule of law for people that look like you and a different rule of law for people of color?
No, what I said is that absolutely we cannot have one rule of law for people who look like me and another for people of color. We cannot have one rule of law for the powerless and another for the... There's just one rule of law. That's what I said.
You also said, when asked if the criminal justice system is systematically racist, you said, quote, "There are structural barriers and disparate outcomes that communities of color experience in our society, separate and apart from any individual's views or intentions." Now, that again seems to be saying the same thing that you're saying you weren't saying. I'm just trying to understand what your views are.
And Senator, that was my attempt in that written question to grapple with, again, what was being asked by systematic racism. I understand some have pointed to structural barriers and disparate outcomes.
So what are the barriers and outcomes you're referring to?
I can think of one prominent example that I've had some experience with, which is the disparity in cocaine sentencing between crack sentencing and powder sentencing. This body has addressed those disparities on multiple occasions, and that has been, as I understand it, something that people have addressed as a result of disparities.
Okay, you also said in responses to questions for the record that, as the Attorney General has explained, everyone has implicit biases. So what are your implicit biases?
Senator, I understand implicit bias to refer to unconscious bias that exists below the level of consciousness, and so to the degree I have implicit biases, I think we all do. I think that's partly the point. Is
So everyone's a racist, whether they know it or not?
And I would say that everyone might have implicit biases, and I don't know what.
So what's the difference between bias and prejudice?
I think there can be a lot of overlap in those things. It depends, I think, on the context.
So you're saying everyone is prejudiced?
That's not what I said.
You just said everyone has implicit biases, and you said that bias and prejudice, I think your words were, there's a lot of overlap.
I think that's right, and I understand implicit bias, and I'm not an expert on the subject, to refer to a set of biases that may exist under a conscious level.
So, since you talk about these implicit bias issues, have you taken a so-called implicit bias test?
We received training that was put on during the last administration in our office on implicit bias. I attended that training in our office.
And what, did you take a test?
I don't believe.
Apply these 2 spices at night if you want to wake up rock hard. I lost count of how many times my husband made excuses, but last night he punished me for 2 hours straight after taking a secret mix. The next day, I could barely sit because he went so hard on me. And it was all because he watched a video from some guy named Richard, a male strip club owner in Texas, where the men last for hours in bed. This simple trick turns ordinary men into real studs in bed. And the secret for these guys to handle up to 5 clients in one night lies in 2 simple ingredients my husband found at the nearest Walmart. With just 1 morning dose, he went wild in the bedroom, lasting for over 2 hours, leaving me completely drenched. At that moment, memories flashed through my mind. That faded spark finally reignited. It was like he was 20 years older. Next time, I'll have to beg him to go easy on me. The video Richard watched is right below. Click now because this is your last chance to watch it. Your wife deserves more.
Did you know that nearly 50 million Americans struggle with hearing loss? I'm 78, but I can hear like I was 27. Let me show you how these men went from constantly asking, "What? Can you repeat?" to hearing perfectly, even in noisy restaurants, without expensive hearing aids and endless appointments in just 14 days. The hairs inside your inner ear are not actually hairs in what you think. They are these tiny filaments called stereocilia that are the top part of hair cells, and they move around in a fluid inside a spiral bone in your ear called the cochlea. The sounds around you are sent through your ear, pass through your eardrum, and a series of tiny bones, and then are turned into waves in the fluid of the cochlea. The stereocilia send messages to your brain, depending on how they move in the fluid. Just like seaweed drifting this way and that way in the ocean current. They will read the movements of these waves and pass the information to your brain, where you use it to understand the sounds all around you. But here's the crazy part. These stereocilia are so accurate, they can detect if they move just 1 atom in distance. It's amazing. However, because they are not actual hairs, this means that as you age and they get damaged, they don't regrow like a regular hair would. Sadly, this is a problem for all mammals because birds, fish, and reptiles can all regrow these cells, so they don't experience hearing loss as they age. It's just us humans and our cats and dogs and other mammals that have to deal with it.
There was a test associated with that, Senator.
Okay, you also said, quote, "But you should know that for justice, for me, is about more than putting people in prison. For me, it's also about who votes and how hard it is to cast that vote. It's about where pipelines or bus routes go. Justice is about whether people in all zip codes can get a loan, whether women have access to health care." That's an interesting statement, and in reading it, what's striking is that that's de-emphasizing the core role of a U.S. attorney. The last I checked, a U.S. attorney is not in the policy business of deciding where pipelines go. That's the role of environmental activists and left-wing activists. But it's not supposed to be a U.S. attorney. Why was your focus elsewhere?
Senator, and the very next thing I said was that those are not issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in the U.S. Attorney's Office, where we are primarily focused on enforcing criminal laws. I was seeking to place justice as a broad concept at the center of, to place our work within justice as a broad concept.
So do you agree that Memphis is one of the most dangerous cities in the nation?
It is. We have an intolerable amount of violent crime, and that's why there's no higher priority for us in our office.
Well, there's no higher priority except for pipelines, except for bus routes, except for bank loans, except for implicit bias, except for the fact that everyone is prejudiced. All of those other things are what you're focused on talking about instead of actually locking up bad guys who are murdering and raping and hurting people.
In those same comments, Senator, I said that we don't apologize for seeking significant prison sentences, and that's at the core of what we do. When we have serious violent crime, we seek serious sentences and consequences.
Thank you.
This is heavy. It's warm. Loads of pockets. I'm impressed with it. This is the best skin.
Best skin.
Best skin.
I can't help it if Speaker Pelosi has decided to go home, which prevents us from offering amendments. Offering amendments to make this bill better. We all support extension of the PPP program, but this is not right. And it would be a lot more intellectually honest if my colleague said, who opposed my amendment, said, look, we just don't think that if you rioted, you should be punished with respect to the PPP program, because that's what a no vote is saying. Without order, there can be no justice. We all know that. Without order, there can be no justice. This past year, we have seen felony rioting throughout the United States. It doesn't matter whether that felony rioting happened here at the Capitol. It doesn't matter whether it happened in Portland or Chicago or Atlanta or at any of our other wonderful communities throughout the United States. It is wrong, and we have all condemned it. And it should be punished, and it certainly shouldn't be rewarded. My amendment is very simple. It says that if you were one of those rioters and you have received due process, you have been convicted by a court of law of competent jurisdiction, and you have been adjudged to have committed a felony with respect to the riot or civil disorder in the past 2 years, that you cannot participate in the PPP program. We already have that law at the SBA for disaster loans. This would extend it to the PPP program. What you allow is what will continue. What you allow is what will continue. And that's why I would respectfully ask consideration of my amendment, Madam President.
Madam President.
The Senator from Maryland.
I rise in opposition to the Kennedy Amendment.
Let me be clear. Any amendment that's put on this clean extension will mean that the program will terminate in less than 1 week. And hundreds of thousands of small businesses will not be able to get their PPP loans. These are newly eligible. We changed the calculations on how much you can apply for. Those who have difficulty finding a financial institution to write the forgivable loan, those in hard-to-serve communities, all are going to be denied. And SBA has indicated there are hundreds of thousands of eligible applicants that have not been able to get in by the due date. Now, in regards to the Kennedy Amendment, the SBA COVID-19 relief is for existing businesses and current business owners with proven reentry track records. Anyone who has rebuilt their life after being incarcerated should be celebrated and supported. There's no reason why a business owned by someone with an unrelated criminal record should be treated any differently. I would urge my colleagues, for the sake of getting this bill to the President and signed so we can help our small businesses, to reject the Kennedy Amendment.
Madam President.
The Senator from Louisiana.
How much time do I have left?
No time remaining.
Could I ask for consent for another 30 seconds?
Without objection.
Madam President, this is the third time I brought this amendment. The third time. Now, you either approve of the rioting that happened this summer and at the Capitol, or you don't. The riots this summer killed 47 people, well over $1 billion worth of damage. Number two, I can't help it if Speaker Pelosi has decided to go home, which prevents us from offering amendments to make this bill better.
Stand by for action.
We all support extension of the PPP program, but this is not right. And it would be a lot more intellectually honest if my colleague said, who opposed my amendment, said, look, we just don't think that if you rioted, you should be punished with respect to the PPP program, because that's what a no vote is saying.
The attack will begin earlier.
Fired.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent for 30 seconds to respond.
Without objection.
The gentleman's amendment goes well beyond this. The gentleman's amendment goes back 2 years. It could be a civil disturbance on a college campus if someone now has an existing business totally unrelated to any economic crime. It is just something that should not be in this law, and I urge my colleagues to reject it.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products. It's Amazon's other company, Audible. Audible pays me $8,000 to $10,000 every single month in passive income.
Madam President.
The Senator from Louisiana.
I'd like to ask my colleague for 30 more seconds.
Is there objection? Without
Madam President,
objection.
I just want to read the language to you. It says that you're prohibited from getting a PPP loan if you've been convicted of a felony in relation to a riot or a civil disorder in the past 2 years.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
You either support violence or you don't. Mr. Director, I've listened from my office to your testimony today. Tell me who had the authority to call out the National Guard on January 6th?
My understanding is that the decisions to call out the National Guard, in one sense, are the responsibility of the Secretary of Defense, but in another sense, have to be...
Mr. Director, I'm sorry to interrupt you. But I think we can agree that the FBI had credible information that there was likely to be violence on January 6th. Can we agree on that?
Well, I don't know that we had assessed its credibility. We certainly had information that was concerning about the potential for violence in connection with the January 6th events. And as we discussed here this morning, one piece of information that is most specific that I'm aware of was passed, quite quickly.
Well, based on that information, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just keep nibbling at the edges and dancing around the issue. And I understand. I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus, Chris. I get it. But we need to find out what happened. Now, if you were king for a day, based on the information that you had, maybe not at the time, but later on, would you have called out the FBI? I mean, the National Guard?
You know, Senator, as you said, I really want to be careful not to be armchair quarterbacking others. I think the National Guard, we have seen, can play a very important role in crowd
Excuse me
control.
for interrupting.
Yeah.
Boy, I sure, you know, I'm not trying to be rude, but my time's limited. Well, who made the call not to, based on your information, who made the call not to call out the FBI, whether they should have or shouldn't?
Not to call the FBI?
I'm sorry, I'm tired. The National Guard.
Well, I would defer to others who are more involved in that discussion, but from what I have heard, what I have read, my understanding is that at one stage of the process, the local government was of the view that it did not need the National Guard's assistance.
Who do you mean by the local government? The mayor?
Yes.
So the mayor didn't call out the National Guard?
At the beginning.
What do you mean by the beginning?
Well, you know, in the day or two leading up to the 6th. Okay. Then, as to exactly how it played out on the 6th itself,
I understand,
you know, I'm not
that,
as
but
sure about. Yeah.
I mean, clearly our people were overrun by the nut jobs. So we're making progress here. Okay, so the mayor of the city government decided not to call out the FBI, the National Guard at a time. What about the House Sergeant at Arms?
I don't know what role the House Sergeant at Arms played with respect to the National Guard.
Okay. How about the Senate Sergeant?
Same answer.
How about the Capitol Police, the Chief of Capitol Police? Did the Chief of Capitol Police make the call not to call out the National Guard?
I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is that the law enforcement officials here with responsibility over the Capitol, that there were differing views about whether or not the National Guard was appropriate and when at what level, but all I really know on that is same thing you've seen, you know, in the press coverage of the events.
Okay, that's enough on that. I listened to your comments about diversity, and I thank you for your good work there. I think any fair-minded person has to conclude that that diversity is a strength, not a weakness. But this subject comes up a lot, and I think it's going to come up a lot again, and that's not a criticism. That's just an observation. Thank you. Do you believe that the FBI is a systemically racist institution?
No. Now, having said that, I do believe the FBI needs to be more diverse and more inclusive than it is, and that we need to work a lot harder at that, and we're trying to work a lot harder.
Do you believe that the FBI is a systemically sexist or misogynistic institution?
Again, that's not the way I would describe the FBI that I know and see every day, but again, it's a place where we need to be more diverse and inclusive, and we need to work harder at that, and we are working hard at that, and we've got progress that we still need to make to at least to be satisfactory by my standards.
Okay. Fair enough. Mr. Director, have you ever been to Hong Kong?
No.
Wonderful place, wonderful people. The Chinese Communist Party is destroying it. If Congress passed a bill and said to the good people of Hong Kong who yearn for freedom, come to America. We're going to follow our friends in Britain. Say, come here. You want to get out from under the thumb of the Communist Party, come to America. We welcome you. Do you think the FBI and law enforcement has the ability to screen for spies? One of the criticisms of the proposition I just stated is, well, we would be letting in spies. Do you think, based on your knowledge of security, that we could catch most of the spies?
Well, I yield to no one in my faith and confidence in the great work of the men and women of the FBI, but I will tell you that the Chinese counterintelligence threat is the greatest threat, certainly the greatest counterintelligence threat that we face as a country.
Right.
And the sheer number of what we would refer to as non-traditional collectors working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party is something that is a massive resource challenge for the FBI.
That was probably an unfair question. I'm not asking you to anything. In the few seconds I have left, and begging the indulgence of our esteemed chairman, who's doing a much better job than Durbin, by the way. Oh, he's back. The Horowitz report. Can you tell me how many people you have referred for prosecution at the FBI as a result of the Horowitz report?
Well, for prosecution or for discipline?
For prosecution first. Just give me numbers, because I don't want to abuse my time.
Well, I the prosecution issue related to anything to do with the courts report is in the hands of Inspector.
I get it. How many of you fired?
So most of the people involved in the Horowitz report are former employees. Of the ones who are current, every single one of them, even if mentioned only in passing, has been referred to our Office of Professional Responsibility, which is our disciplinary arm. Now that piece, and this is important, that piece of it, because we're cooperating fully with Mr. Durham's investigation, at his request, we had slowed that process down to allow his criminal investigation to proceed. So at the moment, that process is still underway in order to make sure that we're being appropriately sensitive to the criminal investigation.
Okay. So you've had to hold up as a result of the criminal investigation. I'm sorry I went over, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses today. Professor Sarah, you're a professor at Yale Law School?
I am.
And I see you've been pretty active on Twitter. I'm looking at one of your tweets from a few months ago, October 30th, 2023. I'd like to read it to you. The House Republican stance is, I kid you not, support for Israel as long as we make it easier for people to cheat on their taxes. End quote. Did you tweet that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. How many Republican congressmen or women did you talk to before you made that statement?
I was reacting to the fact that, and we've talked about it actually.
Yes, ma'am, but first, if you could, how many Republican congresswomen or congressmen did you talk to?
I didn't talk to them. I actually was just reacting to the legislation that was proposed.
You didn't talk to any of them?
No, sir.
Before you said that every single one of them supports Israel only if it is made easier for people to cheat on their taxes?
I actually don't think that every single one of them believed
but
that.
That's what you said.
But I do think that the legislation passed by the House reflects a statement of purpose that in order to support Israel, it's
but I'm looking at what you said.
Allow
what your
taxpayers to be able to cheat on their taxes.
You said that every single House Republican, none of whom you talked to, would only support Israel if it was made easier for Americans to cheat on their taxes. Now, you said that, and you didn't talk to any of them.
Senator Kennedy, I am struck by, and perhaps this is something on which we agree, that it is incredibly important to support Israel. It is also incredibly important to make sure that taxpayers at the top of the distribution
we agree on
pay
Israel,
their
but
fair
I
share.
just can't believe you would say this about members of Congress. It's pretty pejorative, vicious. Let me finish. Without talking to them. I mean, would it be possible for somebody to support a reduction to the IRS budget because they simply believe the federal government ought to have a balanced budget? Would that be a fair position?
That
Would that be a principled position?
Except that that actually doesn't work with respect to defunding
Would it be a
IRS.
principled position?
It wouldn't be an accurate position because
But you don't know because you
IRS
didn't talk to anybody, did you?
Well,
you just said it.
Defunding the IRS, the CBO agrees, everyone who's testifying today agrees that that is going to add to deficits, not reduce.
Could it be that a House Republican wanted to reduce the IRS's budget because they think that the IRS is a model of inefficiency and shouldn't be rewarded with more money?
Well,
Could that have been a possibility, a motivation for the way they
Senator
voted?
Kennedy, I so appreciate that question because the reality
Could that have been a motivation for the way they voted?
and it relates very closely to what Senator
Could
Kennedy
that have
said,
been a motivation for the way they voted?
that you've seen an inefficient
Could that have been a motivation
You
for
allow
the
the
way they
witness to
voted?
answer, you might get your answer, Senator
It
Kennedy.
frankly couldn't have been.
It
because
could or couldn't?
It could not have been.
How do you know you didn't talk to him?
Because the reason why you've seen
You just
IRS
made this
that
statement that
hasn't been able.
every Republican in the House supports Israel only if it has been made easier for people to cheat on their taxes. Could it be that maybe a House member thought that, well, the more money we spend, the more deficits we have, and the more deficits we have, the more pressure is put on interest rates, and the higher interest rates go, the more it hurts the poor.
All right, bros, I'm not feeling good, Jerry, bros.